Hi, I'm Carrie and welcome to Puzzle Kids Sensory Processing Disorder, SPD. Now, I'm surprised this isn't the #1 topic that's currently being addressed for autistic kids, because what I found as a mom is when I understood hyper and hyposensitivity and how this affected my kids, I was able to put the right measures in place, and it has been the #1 most effective strategy in reducing stress and minimizing meltdowns in my household. So in this video, I'm going to give a brief breakdown of what is hyper and hyposensitivity. I'm also going to talk about some effective resources and measures that I've put in place for my kids that are working really well. And then at the very end, I'm going to give you a comprehensive list of signs of hyper and hyposensitivity so that you can observe your own kids and see where they fit. So we were taught at school that we have 5 senses, and we know that we experience our world through external stimuli, which our senses then interpret. With hypersensitivity, there is an over-responsiveness to the external stimuli. So our senses overreact, which you can imagine for autistic kids sometimes sends the nervous system into overdrive when kids are overly sensitive to stimuli. I always associated autism with hypersensitivity. I always thought they can't deal with sounds, they can't deal with bright lights, they're very, very picky when it comes to tastes and textures, scratchy clothing. That's what I understood. And yes, there's a great measure of truth in that. But what I didn't realize is that kids could be hyper as well as hyposensitivity. And my daughter is hyper and hyposensitivity, and it was only when I understood hyposensitivity was the game changer. My son is also very hyposensitive, but I'll talk about that towards the end. Now back to hypersensitivity. I noticed my daughter, she would be outside as a small toddler and she would constantly be covering her ears because she wasn't able to handle the loud noises while playing outside. Also, when multiple people were talking or having a conversation, kids that are hypersensitive when it comes to hearing, it's called hyperacusis. And what it means is that the ear is not able to filter sounds. What it means is that the ear is not able to filter sounds correctly. So they hear everything equally as loud, multiple conversations, which means that they're not able to focus on the conversation at hand or the sound that they need to hear. Also, from the youngest age, I noticed with my daughter, she was an extremely picky eater. 70 to 90% of ASD kids are extremely picky eaters. And that's not just related to taste, it's also related very much to textures because they're overly sensitive. And when she was young, she would eat about 5 different foods, and what we noticed was that the foods either had to be very, very smooth or they had to be very, very crunchy, but nothing in between. Related to that is, of course, a sense of smell. My daughter would be very, very put off if I was cooking in the kitchen, fish or eggs or with a vinaigrette. To this day, if I am sitting at the table with a vinaigrette on my salad, I need to sit on the opposite end of the table. Of course, smell affects taste and eating as well. Some kids are also really affected by bright lights, and so you'll see them wanting to always close the windows. When they go outside, they're really struggling if it's a really, really sunny day. Others really struggle with touch, which means that they don't always want to be hugged. It means that they might struggle with getting their hair cut or their hair brushed or their teeth brushed. Tactile can even be a problem. My other son, who's not ASD but highly sensitive, he really struggles with texture. So every single day it's a fight to try and get his socks on. Tags, seams, those kinds of things are also a big problem with my daughter. She also really struggles with that if she's having a very sensitive day. If she's having a day where she's been really overstimulated, then a simple hug will almost be painful for her. My ASD daughter and son both have hypersensitivity, but I didn't realize it. So hypersensitivity, of course, is an under-responsiveness to external stimuli. So these kids will often seek pressure. Now, we've always been taught about our 5 senses, but there are 3 more. And these 3 are not as obvious because they're more internal. So we've got vestibular, which is your sense of balance. We've got interoception, which is your sense of urges to go to the toilet, urges that tell you that you're hungry. And we've got proprioception, which is your sense of movement, which is why a lot of autistic kids have an awkward gait, an awkward balance. And so what we noticed, especially with our son in the very beginning, he's nearly 5 and has early child autism, was that he was always falling over his feet. He was often knocking his head. But the thing is, when he was knocking his head, he would just get up like a soldier and just keep moving. And we would see a red bump, or we would see his nose bleeding, but absolutely no tears. I didn't realize that my son was hyposensitive until he was diagnosed and I started to do some research. What we did notice right from infancy is that he would roll quite violently in his bed to try and create a sense of pressure to self-soothe himself, to get himself to fall asleep. He would also hum very, very, very loudly. So we had to put some measures in place. Since we've done that, it's reduced significantly, and luckily there's no bodily harm. The other thing we noticed with him is that he would walk, almost bounce on his tippy toes, which he still does. But not just that, he would fall a lot. All the time, in fact. And when he fell and he would bump his head or hurt himself, he would just get up and keep moving. No cries, no tears, no, "Hey mommy, I hurt myself." He even got the nickname the soldier from his teachers at school. There even wasn't the sense of safety that other kids would naturally seem to have. So he would climb to the very top of a very tall ladder and then just let himself fall. And this was always panic stations when I took him to a playground. So for hypersensitivity, what I realized I was doing was 3 things. I was either dubbing or dimming down the stimuli, or I was creating a diversion or distraction, or I was helping my child deal with the sensation by increasing tolerance. This one for loud noises was noise cancelling headgear. Now my daughter said to me at school, she said, "Mommy, when I'm having a bad day, the noises get so loud and there's nowhere I can go." And so she asked me to buy these. And these are great. You can fold them up, and I put them in her school bag. And when she feels like it's just getting too loud, she puts these on. She can still hear the noises around her teacher especially, but it's just dubbed down. Whereas these are her Bluetooth headphones. She loves to listen to stories, to music. If we go out and it's very, very loud, I just take these out and they're Bluetooth, and that's quite a nice distraction for her. Other options are earplugs. Now I know Flare Audio makes some earplugs for kids that are safe. I haven't tested them out, but that could be an option. Another option is, of course, sound therapy, just to increase tolerance, to help them deal with noises and things like that. Now, if your child is sensitive to bright lights, it might be worth looking into some sunglasses. We have electric blinds which come down on really sunny days, and I've noticed my kids often prefer dark rooms. I previously mentioned the dinner winner. So this is a game on a plate. They work through all the different sections and eventually they get a prize. And this has worked really, really well in getting her to try new foods in a greater variety of textures. The other thing I would consider is investing in a really good smoothie maker. I've got a NutriBullet, because then you can blend everything down to a nice smooth texture and you can get in vitamins, fruits, vegetables they wouldn't usually try. Another good resource for SPD kids is straws. Now, I've been told by my kid's speech therapist, this is great for strengthening jaw muscles, mouth muscles. So we do races daily and then they have to use their straws. Another thing is poppets, fidget spinners we have lying around. Now, if your child is sensitive to clothing, and so my highly sensitive son, Eric, he is not ASD, but he is highly sensitive, and we constantly fight about socks. So I would consider getting seamless socks or socks that are very, very nice and stretchy. The other thing to consider is to get clothing with the writing on the inside instead of tags, or if you do have tags, then cut the tags out the clothing. Another thing with hypersensitivity that can be a problem is bath time. The first question I'd ask myself is my child prepared to sit in a little plunge pool? So if they are, it could be the idea of the bath, or it could be the temperature of the water. In the summertime, I'd get them to sit in a little plunge pool with all their toys. Just get them to have fun in the bath. We take our kids to the swimming pool, and they've got pools with a variety of different temperatures, and we do that on purpose to kind of desensitize them, to help them to deal with the sensation of water and the different temperatures. The other thing we do is we have fun in the bath, so a diversion. So they always have bubble baths and they're different colors, and then they get to play. You've got paints, we've got a big box full of toys that they pop into the bath, and of course washing hair can also be a problem. So just check the temperature and start little by little by just using a little cup of water. Sometimes they just have to deal, but even a distraction, a great toy is helpful. Hair. can be another problem. Now, it wasn't until I discovered this hairbrush that hairbrushing became easy. You can see it's really, really soft. The bristles are super soft. And so my daughter finally lets me brush her hair. So look for something with very, very soft bristles. At the therapy center we were at, our child's nutritionist said, try to get your children to use electric toothbrushes. It's just that sensation in the mouth, which is very good as well for picky eating. All of my children use these without an issue. Cutting or shaving hair. This is still a big problem for my ASD son. Today's actually hair cutting day. And the thing that I do is distraction or diversion. He's very, very sensitive. I make sure I put a towel around him that no hair gets onto his body. But the other thing I do is I reserve a video or a program that's very special, that's just reserved for hair cutting, and then he sits there and he watches on the tablet, and I'm able to distract him and I get through cutting his hair. Let's talk hypersensitivity. Now, my office chair has been taken over by my children because it swivels around. So they don't sit on it, they lie across it and they swivel themselves around, which is often something that hypersensitive kids do. They spin around, they often don't get dizzy. The other thing I notice with my daughter is that she doesn't want to sit on a comfortable couch. She to have very, very structured breakfast, lunch, and supper. I even carry snacks in my bag when I know that I'm going to be out for an extended period of time. And that's because my daughter is often not able to say to me, Mom, I'm hungry. I can just see it. She's aggravated. She's suddenly oversensitive. She's crying. She's aggressive. And so I make sure that I'm always prepared. And this has been the most effective strategy of reducing meltdowns for my daughter. The other thing is that sensation of going to the toilet. It's not there. So I have a routine chart. Excuse this one, my son is drawn all over it. Only when I realized with my daughter that she was hypersensitive, that she didn't sense the urge of going to the toilet, that we were able to see a big turnaround with her toilet issues. And that's really remedied the situation for us. My son is still not completely potty trained. We're still working with the routines to try and get him aware of his body, to try and get him aware of the internal signals. Hey, I need to go to the toilet. The other thing about sensory processing disorder is that fine and gross motor skills are often underdeveloped. So we've created a beautiful area outside to get our kids moving. So helping your kids develop their fine and gross motor skills. So we've got a climbing, play, sensory areas. We've got bunny rabbits. We've got a trampoline for them to jump. And here we've even got a sand pit, which is really great. And upstairs in their little house, we've got a Play-Doh crafting area. It's been absolute therapy for my daughter to go out every afternoon and stroke her bunny. Of course, not everyone has a big garden or the possibility of a jungle gym or bunny rabbits for that matter. Hanging swings, climbing walls, even resources like this, it's called pretzel yoga. And then you get your kids to try to do various movements. That can even be fun. Certain exercise and coordination videos. Something very important for my son with his hypersensitivity is occupational therapy. Can I ask one thing from you? If you are using a resource or a protocol, or there's a therapy that you're using with your child that's been really, really, really helpful for sensory processing disorder, won't you write in the comment below and let me know? And finally, I'm sitting in my boy's bedroom and I mentioned my son Adam, who's hypersensitive, who would be stimming, and he would be rolling from side to side to try to self-soothe and be able to get the pressure that he needed to be able to get to sleep. But he was causing himself harm. And it wasn't until we discovered this weighted blanket, which weighs 6 kgs, by the way, that his sleep dramatically improved. You see, it gave him the pressure that he needed, and he was able to calm, and he would just hold his little monkey and then be able to fall asleep. The other thing we invested in is these bumpers, which we put on either side of the bed to prevent him, number one, from rolling out of the bed, but also he would be constantly bumping against the wall. And finally, my kids are nearly 5, they're learning about their numbers, and so I bought some magnetic numbers and letters, and my Adam will constantly be rearranging numbers and letters and putting them in the correct order. Of course, tactile. It's great. And please subscribe for more tips, tricks, and hacks to help your puzzle kid find their fit. That's it from me. Bye-bye.